Hi everyone, I'm back again, and today I'm going to be going over the Synastry chart between Taylor Swift and Joe Alwyn. I've had multiple requests, so I'm finally getting around to this. Now there is so many people that want to know why they broke up, and I think I have it figured out, so I'm going to get started. His Vesta and Sappho conjuncts her descendant 2 degrees. Now this is important because the descendant is an angle, and it's a very strong part of a synastry chart as well as the other angles and the luminaries. So Vesta has to do with, it's a devotion and a reliability that he brought into the relationship, as well as Sappho, which is like a highbrow eroticism that means the arts and literature. Now his Pholus conjuncts her vertex, 0 degrees. Pholus has to do with explosions and outbursts. And this is the beginning of all of the other aspects that tie into it. I think that there was a lot of arguments between the two of them in the relationship and blow-ups. Now before I get to those aspects that validate this, I just want to say that in the media, they tend to idealize and make it look like everyone, all these celebrities, that their relationships are perfect, but they're not. And I also have to say that out of all of the synastry charts I do, the ones between the celebrities seem to be the most volatile, and they don't last long, which is totally different than the synastry charts that I do for my clients, because I have people come up to me and say, will you do my synastry chart? I really want to know what's going on, but I'm afraid because I don't know if it's going to be a disaster and end up in destruction. And I always say, the normal people that I do, it's so much softer and easier and not as crazy and volatile as the ones in the media. And I don't know why that is, but yes, there are some that I've done where there's huge red flags, and I tell the person, you really shouldn't be with this. You really should not be involved in this relationship because it's not going to end up well. So I know I went off on a tangent, but I think that's important that I tell you that. So I'm going to move forward. Now, her point of fortune conjuncts his Astarte at 2 degrees, and Astarte has to do with blow-ups and arguments. And since her point of fortune is conjuncting that asteroid, it magnifies those energies, because the point of fortune is like a mini Jupiter, and it can explode whatever it touches. Now, his night is conjuncting her midheaven at 2 degrees. And this is fascinating to me as well, because whatever conjuncts your midheaven from the other person, those energies will present themselves outwardly. The whole world will see the energies within the asteroids conjuncting your midheaven. And if you're not famous, the general public. So his night conjuncting her midheaven, the whole world thought that he was like the perfect guy, or like a knight in shining armor. In her natal chart, her Dolores conjuncts her midheaven. And this means that, well, Dolores has to do with pain and suffering. So everyone sees the pain and suffering that she has gone through with all of her relationships. She'll write songs about them, all of them, and there's pain and suffering involved. So that makes sense as well. Now his Alma, Mercury, Sphinx, and Ishtar conjuncts her North Node. Whatever conjuncts your North Node from the other person, that's going to be the main theme of the relationship between the two of you. So if you break up and look back, that's what you're going to remember the relationship by, the energies associated, which was conjuncting your North Node. So in this case, Alma, his Alma, that has to do with a deep soulful connection, and Mercury has to do with thinking and writing. and Sphinx. Sphinx has to do with secrets. And he was a mystery to her in a way, and there was an enigma about him that she couldn't quite figure out. But there's secrets involved between the two of them that were not exposed out in the open. And one of those is the blow-ups and arguments between the two of them, because his Ishtar is conjuncting her North Node. Again, if she had to tell the truth about this and someone pressed her, I think that she would say, you know what, we had a very soulful relationship. He helped me write my songs. There was some good communication, but we did not, it couldn't last because there's just too much explosions and arguments and drama behind the scenes between the two of them. Her Astarte conjuncts his North Node at 1 degree. Again, blow-ups and arguments. Astarte has the same energy as Ishtar. So there's this warlike behavior between the two of them and blow-ups. And it could also have to do with her Mars is squaring his Zeus. And Zeus has to do with cheating. So there is a possibility that there was infidelity between the two of them. Now, his Semper conjuncts her ascendant, and the Semper has to do with a long-standing devotion. So if she did not break up with him, I think that he would have dug in his heels and he would have stayed with her for a very long time. Now, the interesting part of this is his Saturn conjuncts her Venus, and that's the glue that can hold a relationship together. However, his Semper conjuncting her Venus is at 0 degrees, which is the tightest orb. So another reason I think that they broke up is because of Saturn. And, you know, Saturn has a very cold and critical sort of energy, and it can squash the love nature of Venus, which is her. And after a while, I think she was, because of Saturn squashing her love nature, him being cold, controlling as well, because his Pluto is conjuncting her ascendant. And when you have Pluto conjuncting your ascendant from the other person, this makes you weak in the knees. You find them very attractive and sexy and alluring. But over time, Pluto will try to remake the ascendant person, which is her. So he was, I think, cold, controlling, critical, and she was like, you know what, I don't want to be with someone who acts like my parent. So over time, and Saturn rules father time, that's what happened. Also, his Ceres conjuncts her Lilith at 1 degree, and Lilith has to do with raw sexuality, and Ceres has to do with love. So they had a good sexual relationship, and they enjoyed each other that way, because her Lilith is being tried by his Sun as well. But over time, the sexual passion is not sustainable unless there are other aspects to keep the two of you together. And in this case, Saturn was just too harsh for her loving, emotional nature. Also, his Lacrimosa conjuncts her Mercury at 0 degrees. So there was tears and crying over this, and an ending that she just couldn't keep it together, and she made up her mind and didn't want to be in a relationship where there was blow-ups, arguments, and an eventual coldness and restrictive energy. But also, this is actually very important, because his Lilith, Union, Apophis, and Mad Hatter conjuncts her Sun at 0 degrees. So Lilith conjuncting her Sun, like I said, strong sexuality, union, there's a togetherness, but Apophis is there, and Apophis has to do with destruction. So he had this destructive sort of influence, and she felt it on her ego, her because the sun has to do with ego. So he inadvertently destroyed that part of her, and Apophis is holding hands with Mad Hatter, and Mad Hatter has to do with drama and craziness. It's like you blame someone else for all the craziness going on, but you're the one that's actually creating all the drama and craziness. So that's what I think happened in this relationship, and I've said this before, the charts don't lie. So I hope you enjoyed this interpretation, and I will be back soon with more Synastry charts. So hit the subscribe button, like and share, and I will be back soon. Have a nice day.